Second. Yeah, good evening, everybody. I would like to have the cameras on, please. Good evening, guys. Okay, so we did talk about last session, the concept of glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and the electron transport system, and along with it, the chemi-osmotic hypothesis. Today, we just finish off a few remaining parts of the chapter of respiration, and then we go into another very important chapter, photosynthesis. So, very quickly, let's go through that first remaining part of respiration. Check. So, now the next logic I would want you all to remember, you have read about it already. The Krebs cycle is an amphibolic pathway. You heard of that, sir? The Krebs cycle is an amphibolic pathway. What is amphibolism?
Catabolic as well as anabolic.
Yes, whenever there is catabolism and catabolism of one nutrient takes place and breakdown takes place. And breakdown products undergo build-up to form another substance, which is called as anabolism, is building up another nutrient then the simultaneous catabolism of one nutrient and anabolism build-up of another nutrient is called as amphibolism. That is called as amphibolism. So in our body, fats can break down and become a part of Krebs cycle and get converted into carbohydrates or converted into proteins. Similarly, proteins can break down and get converted into carbohydrates or fats. Similarly, carbohydrates can break down and get converted into proteins or fats. So there is catabolism of one and anabolism of another. How do carbohydrates break down? We know that already. Glucose undergoes glycolysis to form pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid undergoes acetylation to form acetyl coenzyme A and then undergoes the Krebs cycle. Now, this is normal pathway. समझो carbohydrates हमारे body में खत्म हो जाते हैं. Then what will burn next to give energy?
Fats.
Fats. If carbohydrates are burned up, then fats are broken down. What will fats break down in your digestive system to form? Fats will form fatty acids and glycerol. Fats will form fatty acid and glycerol. Glycerol breaks down to form dihydroxyacetone phosphate, DHAP, or 3-PGAL, and then undergoes glycolysis to become pyruvic acid, which then becomes acetyl coenzyme A, and then undergoes the Krebs cycle. So glycerol becomes PGAL or DHAP. And fatty acids get converted into acetyl coenzyme and thus enter into Krebs cycle. So one molecule of fat will give 9.45 kilocalories of energy. Yaad hai all of you? One molecule of glucose gives 4 kilocalorie of energy. Why do fats give more energy? Because fats may glycerol also undergoes glycolysis, acetylation, and Krebs cycle, and fatty acids also become acetyl coenzyme A and then undergo the Krebs cycle. समझो प्रोटीन्स, अच्छा पहले कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स यूज हो गए, बाद में फैट्स यूज हो गए, लास्ट में फैट्स भी यूटिलाइज हो जाएंगे तो प्रोटीन्स विल ब्रेक डाउन. Proteins will break down to form amino acids, and amino acids get converted into pyruvic acid, and pyruvic acid then becomes acetyl coenzyme A and gets converted by Krebs cycle into energy, and 1 gram of fat will also give 4 kilocalories of energy. So important to remember, where does glycerol enter? Dihydroxyacetone phosphate or 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde. Where do fatty acids enter? Acetyl coenzyme A. And where do amino acids enter? Pyruvic acid. And eventually, what is the common mechanism by which all of them give out energy? Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle is the common mechanism by which all of them will give out energy. Now, समझो एक child है, Indian child, lot of carbohydrates consumed. Indian diet, vegetarian, but proteins are less. Then, what is the disease caused due to protein and deficiency called as?
Protein energy malnutrition, kwashiorkor and marasmus.
Kwashiorkor and marasmus. So, a child will immediately go into kwashiorkor marasmus. How is that prevented? How is that prevented? Body में जितना भी extra carbohydrates है will first become pyruvic acid. So that is catabolism. And pyruvic acid undergoes reversal to become carbohydrates, say amino acids. And amino acids form proteins. So what is the common connecting point? Pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid undergoes, other carbohydrates undergo catabolism to form pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid undergoes a reversal to form amino acid, which then forms protein. And इस तरह से क्वाशियोरकार मेरास्मस प्रिवेंट होता है. समझो you are obese, you are fat, then your doctor, your dietitian, your gym instructor tells you do a lot of exercising and you will lose fats. So what will happen when you start exercising? When you start exercising, fats become glycerol and fatty acids, and glycerol becomes dihydroxyacetone phosphate and becomes pyruvic acid, and fatty acids become acetyl coenzyme A, and acetyl coenzyme A again becomes pyruvic acid, and pyruvic acid undergoes a reversal to form amino acids which will then form proteins. तो आप जितना भी एक्सरसाइज करोगे आपके बॉडी का फैट्स का क्या होगा? कैटाबॉलिज्म. एंड प्रोटीन्स का क्या होगा? एनाबॉलिज्म. व्हाट इज द कनेक्टिंग पॉइंट? पायरुविक एसिड. एंड पायरुविक एसिड से एनाबॉलिज्म इनटू प्रोटीन्स हो जाएगा. एंड व्हाट इज दैट प्रोसेस कॉल्ड एज? एम्फीबॉलिज्म. What is the process called as? Amphibolism. That is catabolism of one nutrient and anabolism of another nutrient is called as amphibolism. So, neat point of view, what is good to be remembered? Glycerol gets converted into DHAP or PGAL, which then enters glycolysis and Krebs cycle. What do fatty acids become? Acetyl coenzyme A. And what do proteins form? Amino acids, what do they become? Pyruvic acid. So once again, what does glycerol become? DHAP or 3-PGAL. What do fatty acids become? Acetyl coenzyme A. And what do amino acids become? Pyruvic acids. And enter into Krebs cycle. Have you understood this, all of you? Yeah. So what is this mechanism called as? Amphibolism. This is called amphibolism. Then we have fermentation or anaerobic respiration. Fermentation or anaerobic respiration in prokaryotes, bacteria, yeast, etc. There is anaerobic respiration. Mitochondria तो होते नहीं है prokaryotes में. So how will breakdown take place? Glucose undergoes glycolysis to form two molecules of pyruvic acid in the presence of an enzyme called zymase, which will do fermentation. If the process takes place within the bacteria, it is called anaerobic respiration. But if it takes place outside the bacteria with the help of zymase enzyme, then the extracellular anaerobic respiration is called as fermentation. So if it is intracellular, what is it called? Anaerobic respiration. But if zymase enzyme goes out and there it does anaerobic respiration, then what is that extracellular process called as? Fermentation. That is fermentation. And glucose becomes two molecules of pyruvic acid by glycolysis. And glycolysis is done. What are the end products? 4 minus 2, that is 2 ATP, and 2 NADH plus H plus. Will the 2 NADH plus H plus form 6 ATP?
No,
No,
because it doesn't have mitochondria, so that
mitochondria, so cannot undergo ETS. So ETS नहीं होगा. And pyruvic acid undergoes decarboxylation to form acetaldehyde. Pyruvic acid undergoes decarboxylation to form two molecules of acetaldehyde in the presence of pyruvic acid decarboxylase. Given in the NCRT, remember that pyruvic acid undergoes decarboxylation in the presence of pyruvic acid decarboxylase. And what is the two carbon substance form called as? Acetaldehyde. So pyruvic acid में कितने कार्बन थे? 3. Two molecules of 3-carbon pyruvic acid. On losing carbon dioxide, what will it form? Two molecules of acetaldehyde, which is 2 carbon. And 2-carbon acetaldehyde now undergoes reduction. The 2 NADH plus H plus which were formed are used again. So here NAD become NADH plus H plus, and here NADH plus H plus again become NAD. तो यहाँ NAD बनता है, यहाँ NAD use हो जाता है. And what does aldehyde plus hydrogen become?
alcohol.
Aldehyde plus hydrogen become alcohol. So acetaldehyde plus hydrogen become ethyl alcohol, a 2-carbon compound. So 2 molecule of 2 carbon ethyl alcohol, 2C2H5OH. So what are the 3 steps? Glucose undergoes glycolysis to form pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid undergoes decarboxylation to form acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde undergoes reduction, accepts hydrogen from NADH plus H plus to form ethyl alcohol. तो 3 step हुए: glycolysis, decarboxylation, and reduction. And what is this entire mechanism called as? This is called as anaerobic respiration. So what has glucose formed? C6H12O6 has formed two molecules of C2H5OH, plus 2 CO2 plus 2 ATP, only 2 ATP. So what is anaerobic respiration? C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives you 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O. Sorry, C6H12O6 gives you 2C2H5OH plus 2CO2 plus only 2 ATP. And that is anaerobic respiration, which takes place in bacteria and yeast. Which is the enzyme involved there? Pyruvic acid decarboxylase. Pyruvic acid decarboxylase. And then you have in animal cells. In animal cells, muscles, when they are exercising in oxygen deficiency, or in milk during curd fermentation with the help of lactic acid bacteria, what will happen? सर अगर हम एक्सरसाइज कर रहे हैं और एरोबिकली हो रहा है तो CO2 और H2O हो रहा है, बट समझो बहुत जल्दी जल्दी भागने लगते हैं तो एरोबिक के साथ साथ एनारोबिक रेस्पिरेशन भी होगा. एंड एनारोबिक रेस्पिरेशन कैसे होगा? One molecule of glucose undergoes glycolysis to form two molecules of pyruvic acid, which is same. Will the two molecules of pyruvic acid then undergo decarboxylation and reduction? Will it undergo glycolysis, decarboxylation, reduction?
It will form lactic acid. So
और इथाइल अल्कोहल बन जाएगा. तो भागते भागते आपके मसल्स में अल्कोहल बन जाएगा और वो आपके ब्रेन पे एक्ट करेगा और आपको नशा चढ़ जाएगा. तो ऐसा थोड़ी होता है. तो व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस कंपेयर टू अल्कोहल एंड लैक्टिक एसिड? इन अल्कोहल, glycolysis, decarboxylation and reduction to form ethyl alcohol. In lactic acid fermentation, glucose undergoes glycolysis to form pyruvic acid. That is true. But pyruvic acid does not undergo decarboxylation. Decarboxylation नहीं होता है. It directly undergoes reduction. And pyruvic acid uses the 2 NADH2. So glycolysis में NAD had become NADH plus H plus, and pyruvic acid was formed. Along with it, 2 ATPs were formed, and ATPs are used in the process of running. But what will pyruvic acid undergo? Direct reduction. So NADH plus H plus again become NAD, and reduction takes place in the presence of an enzyme called lactate dehydrogenase. Lactate dehydrogenase to form 3-carbon substance called as lactic acid. So, how many steps are involved? 2. First, there is glycolysis, then there is reduction. And what is the net product? Lactic acid. What would have happened if along with glycolysis there was decarboxylation?
then ethanol would be formed.
Then it would form ethyl alcohol.
Ethyl alcohol.
But agar decarboxylation nahi hoga, then what is the 3-carbon substance form called as?
Lactic acid.
Lactic acid. So in alcohol fermentation, there is glycolysis, there is decarboxylation, there is reduction. In lactic acid fermentation, there is glycolysis and there is reduction. There is no decarboxylation. So that is about anaerobic respiration. Then we have respiratory quotient. What is the respiratory quotient? That whenever any nutrient is used, what is the volume of CO2 evolved upon the volume of O2 used? जितना CO2 evolve होता है upon volume of O2 used. So when carbohydrates are used as substrate, then what will be the RQ?
It would be 1, right? Because 6.
1. Glucose में C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives you 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus 38 ATP. So how much is the RQ? RQ is 6CO2 upon 6O2. 6CO2 upon 6O2. So how much is the RQ? RQ is 6CO2 upon 6O2. So RQ is equal to 1. So what is the RQ of carbohydrate? 1. What is the RQ of fats? अगर fats tripalmitin use होता है, tripalmitin is this. It is 2C51H98O6 plus 145O2 gives you 102 CO2 plus 98 H2O plus energy. Statement in the NCRT. So how much is the RQ? 102 CO2 upon 145 O2. How much is 102 upon 145? 0.7. So how much is the RQ of fats? RQ of fats is 0.7. RQ of fats is 0.7. When proteins are used as respiratory substrate, the RQ will be 0.9. RQ 0.9. सर ऐसा क्यों होता है? Because fats and proteins में oxygen content is less. Oxygen content कम है. How much is there for glucose C6H12O6? तो जितना कार्बन है उतना ही ऑक्सीजन है, तो CO2 इजीली बन जाता है. But how much is the what is the formula of tripalmitin?
C51, H98 and O6.
C1 H98 O6. So compared to 51 carbon, there are only 6 oxygen. So you will need a lot of external oxygen. ज़्यादा external oxygen चाहिए to liberate more amount of carbon dioxide. So if RQ, rather if the oxygen content is poor, if oxygen content of any nutrient is poor, you will need extra oxygen to liberate carbon dioxide. तो RQ high कब रहेगा?
When the number of carbon dioxide would be high and oxygen would be low.
Rather, RQ is high when the respiratory substrate has got higher amount of oxygen. So external oxygen required is less. तो RQ high होगा. But अगर oxygen कम है, तो external oxygen used is more. तो RQ low हो जाएगा. Any example you know where RQ will be more than 1?
Organic compounds.
Yes,
Organic acid.
organic acids. Say for example, malic acid. Malic acid when it breaks down. What are malic acid, citric acid, etc.? Tricarboxylic acid. सुना ये? They are tricarboxylic acid. They have COOH, COOH, COOH in them. 3 carboxylic groups in them. So they are tricarboxylic acids. So because they already have 3 COOH groups in them, they already are rich in oxygen. उसमें already oxygen high है. So amount of CO2 evolved is greater and oxygen used is less. In other words, RQ will be greater than 1. RQ will be greater than 1. And what will be the RQ of anaerobic respiration?
Infinity, because oxygen is 0. That would be
Correct.
used.
C6H12O6 gives you 2 C2H5OH plus 2 CO2 plus 2 ATP. So how much is the RQ?
Infinite.
CO2 evolved upon O2 used. How much is CO2 evolved? 2 CO2.
2.
2 CO2. How much is the O2 used?
0.
0. How much is 2 upon 0?
Infinite.
Infinity. Infinity. So once again, What is the RQ of carbohydrates?
1.
1.
1. RQ of fats?
0.7 or less.
7.
0.7. RQ of proteins?
0.9.
0.9.
0.9. RQ of organic acids?
Greater than
More
1.
than 1.
Greater than 1. RQ of anaerobic respiration?
Infinite.
Infinite.
Beyond them.
Infinite. What is the RQ of cactus?
Zero.
Very
Zero
good. Can you
condition
explain
is
that?
equal to 0.
It is a succulent.
Correct. So what will happen?
Uh, the water loss is minimized.
Water loss is minimized. At night, what will happen? He's right. RQ of succulents is 0. तो ये 6 RQ याद रख लेना. I'll just explain you about succulent. Succulents observe crassulation acid metabolism. ये सुना है? CAM pathway. So throughout the daytime, stomata are closed to prevent transpiration. At night, stomata will open and inside goes oxygen. So oxygen goes inside, respiration takes place in mitochondria. But the carbon dioxide evolved straight away is used by chloroplasts and converted into malic acid, like in C4 plants. So there is no CO2 evolved. So how much will be the RQ? RQ will be CO2 evolved upon oxygen used. So is oxygen used? Stomata open, oxygen is used. And no CO2 evolved. Because CO2 is converted into malic acid. So no CO2 evolved upon oxygen use, 0 upon something. How much is 0 upon something?
0.
0. So what is the RQ of succulent?
0.
Like cactus. RQ of succulents like cactus is 0. Have you understood this, all of you? Sure. So with that, we have understood the concept of respiration chapter. Good.